Everything discovered on Mars so far. Hello lovely YouTube family, welcome back to Tech Invasion. In today's video, we are going to talk about everything discovered on Mars so far. Before we start, I want you to hit that red subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our videos. Even though the most ardent NASA supporter must admit that the Martian surface is a very dull matter, what if we told you that NASA's latest Perseverance rover has already made jaw-dropping discoveries about a harbor seal, the Wright brothers aircraft, and the benefits of strict personal hygiene. Join us today as we demonstrate on how much this dead plant rocks and hear about the discoveries made so far on Mars. The aim of NASA's Mars 2020 mission is to look for signs of microbial existence that scientists believe occurred 3 billion years ago, when conditions on Mars were likely somewhat close to those on Earth. If the mission is successful, the scientific knowledge acquired would pave the way for the future manned mission to Mars. The rover had been on the planet for fewer than 100 days at a time of publication. Nonetheless, a great deal has been learned. For one thing, crucial proof of concept data was gathered during the landing process. The mission's all-new terrain relative navigation system used cutting-edge onboard imaging and data of the craft's onboard cameras to locate the Perseverance landing zone to within a few meters. Even a slight overshoot would have gotten the rover into trouble, requiring weeks of hard driving to get it back to where it wanted to be. And this information would be very useful in upcoming missions. During entry and landing, 3 types of sensors were used to gather data on temperatures and exterior pressure before and after the famed parachute was deployed. Thermocouples, heat flux sensors, and pressure transducers. One potentially significant finding was that every single thermocouple made it through the landing unscathed, implying that heat shield damage was negligible. Since the thermocouples aren't mission critical, potential landers will be able to get away with thinner heat shields, saving valuable weight. Perseverance was safely settled on the Martian surface, has since been blasting rocks with its super space laser, much as we would if we were in its place. You may have noticed that the rover's new Jezero crater home is subbed with light-colored rocks peering out from the field of russet-colored soil and images returned from Mars. The Perseverance Supercam, probably the coolest man-made gadget ever sent into space, has singled out a few of those rocks for special consideration. Supercam approaches the target stone and shoots a small pinpoint laser that is accurate up to 7 meters range. As the strong beam strikes the rock, a brief cloud of superheated plasma containing free-floating ions and electrons is released. The onboard spectrograph on the Perseverance will read to the belief plasma signature and determine the rock's chemical composition. Maz and Yigo are the nicknames given on 2 rocks that scientists believe are deserving of the Supercam treatment. Aaron Yazzie, the NASA engineer and proud Navajo Nation participant, invented these Nonth words from the Navajo dialect. Maze, which means Mars, and Yigo, which means diligent, are both bauxite-like in nature, and they're so ingenious in the sense that they came from a volcano, but more importantly, they seem to have been formed in their current form in a long ago watery climate. If proof were required that Mars wasn't always such a dry topic, here it is. The harbor seal is another notable rock that Perseverance has explored. NASA suggests that the natural erosion by strong northwesterly winds sculpted into the sinuous likeness of the playful aquatic carnivore. This result backs up previous weather predictions for the Martian atmosphere. For scholars, this is true and valuable data point. In addition to being adorably adorable, Perseverance has given optical hints in the mineral content of rocks by Supercam's super duper laser. Oh no, the echo of its sci-fi laser zapping stones also provides acoustic hints to their composition. One of the most innovative features of this project so far is that due to Perseverance onboard batteries and microphones, everyone on Earth can listen to it on Martian soundscape. A soundtrack of the rover's heavy metal wheels clanging and banging around the hard rocking Martian terrain was also released on NASA's SoundCloud. In addition to the pew-pew of the laser, not to mention the eerie atmospheric susurrection of exponential winds, which can be heard online by anybody who wishes to. It's almost magical. Perseverance marvelous Moxie machine has achieved nothing short of alchemy in converting base CO2 into life-giving oxygen. Moxie is a gold-plated gizmo, about the size of a car battery that stands for Mars Oxygen Inside a Resource Use Experiment. In case you were wondering, it operates by diffusing CO2 from the atmosphere into a non-porous uterus-stabilized Yakora or YSE, disc sandwiched between 2 porous electrodes. It also released a small but historic 5 grams of oxygen on April 20th. This equates to about 10 minutes of breathable air. Moxie isn't simply the first tool to generate oxygen on another planet, opening the way for humans to colonize the galaxy. It's also the first of its kind, allowing potential missions to work off the ground using elements of another world's atmosphere as fuel. This is referred to as in situ resource use by fancy engineers. That is, local CO2 is used to produce oxygen, which is used to make rocket propellant. This is far more difficult task than just breathing oxygen. A future mission will require about 15,000 pounds, or 7 metric tons, of rocket fuel and 25 metric tons of oxygen to produce enough fuel to launch, say, 4 astronauts of the Martian soil. That's clearly much too important to transport from Earth. Those 4 astronauts, on the other hand, will only need about 1 metric ton of oxygen to breathe. And Moxie has shown that it can be achieved by at least a greater descendant band, a historical significant first. The successful launch of NASA's $80 million Ingenuity helicopter is, of course, the most eye-catching feat of the mission so far. The diminutive chopper, affectionately known as Guinea, if you think that's cute, way before you hear Perseverance's nickname Percy, just a month ago cemented its place in the annals of science by completing the first powered flight on another planet. And that's the very fact it survived the trip to all of its miracle. If Ingenuity would have crashed after the very first flight, we would still have met a couple huge milestones. One NASA technician told fans on Reddit. Surviving launch, charging while en route, surviving the entry, descent, and landing, also deploying the rover and surviving the cold Martian night, these are no small task. Having an airworthy spacecraft small enough to be stowed on an interplanetary rover is an incredible feat, and it paves the way for potential missions to explore locations where rovers aren't suitable. Engineers are currently gathering data from this one-of-a-kind thin air copter in order to use its construction of small micro-drones, or drones that travel at a high altitude for use on the ground. The solar panels installed near Jenny's rotor blades were one of the especially striking scientific discoveries. Engineers spent a long time trying to figure out how to save the panels from attracting and losing control as a result of the natural coating of Mars dust. Various alternatives such as mini windscreen wipers were proposed but refused due to their added difficulty and weight. As the dual rotors began rotating, however, technicians found Jenny's solar output had improved by a few percentage points. Engineers believe that Jenny's dusty solar panels were self-cleaning as a result of the airflow of the blades. Hygiene matters, even on Mars. Jenny is also transporting a unique payload. A square cloth the size of a postage stamp that was once part of the Wright brothers' historic 1903 flying plane was carefully added to the craft as a tribute to the true pioneers of aviation. Now it's all up there. Before we get too carried away by how cute that is, NASA's Ingenuity program manager, Mimi Ong, had this to say. "We've been thinking so long about having our Wright brothers moment," she said. "Modestly, we will take a moment to celebrate our success and then take a cue from Orville and Wilbur regarding what to do next." So what did the Wrights do after that? History reveals that they returned to work, learning that they could about their new plane, that it's forward and upwards. What are your thoughts? Are these breakthroughs worth the astronomical price tag, or would we be content if Jenny replies with a selfie of a little green man? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more cutting edge tech. Perseverance, NASA's rover on Mars, has been busy first month on the Earth. Perseverance has been doing as much geology as it can from Jericho Crater, where it landed on February 18th, taking photos of its surroundings and analyzing the rocks nearby. Several of the rocks are chemically comparable to volcanic rocks on Earth, though others have been eroded by wind and water, according to a team scientist. "Everything is going great so far," said Kenneth Fairley, a geochemist at the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena and the mission's project scientist. He and others described Perseverance progress on March 16th as a virtual meeting of the Lunar Planetary Science Conference. The rover's main research test will have to wait a few months longer than planned, as engineers continue to test its scientific instruments and brace for the first helicopter flight on another planet. Perseverance will eventually use a variety of instruments to search for traces of past existence in Martian rocks, including a drill bit, a close-up camera, and a various chemical sensor. Meanwhile, team scientists are planning how the rover will get from its landing site, which was recently named after a late science fiction writer, Octavia Butler, to the 40-meter high cliffs of the ancient river delta that prompted Jericho's selection as a landing site. If ancient microbial life persisted, the delta, which was deposited billions of years ago by a river running on Mars, may have been a perfect landscape for it. Between Perseverance and the delta, though, it's a treacherous dune plain that the rover cannot traverse. Researchers are debating whether to push Perseverance across the dune area clockwise or anti-clockwise. The latter would be a quicker journey, but the former would lead Perseverance past a wider range of fascinating rocks. However, none of this is going to happen until at least June. Perseverance must first travel to an appropriate location where Ingenuity, the helicopter, can be tested. This would most likely be a rock-strewn field not far from where the rover is now. As the helicopter takes to the Martian sky, the rover can drop Ingenuity from its belly, push out a safe distance, and fire a film. "We're looking forward to these historic aviation first movies," said Jim Bell, a planetary scientist at the Arizona State University, and Temp, who leads one of the rover's cameras team. The helicopter test arrives first so Ingenuity can fly alongside Perseverance as it drives, assisting in the navigation of the terrain. Team scientists will continue to explore the rocks around the landing site until the first flight drill, which is due no sooner than the first week of April. Lighter colored rocks protrude from the black dirt immediately around the rover. Perseverance used a laser-based instrument to establish that some of these rocks, including two called Maz and Yigo by team scientists, are chemically identical to Earth's basaltic rocks, which developed from molten lava. The device uses a laser to vaporize small parts of rocks in order to analyze their chemical makeup. According to Roger Wiens, a geochemist at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico who leads the laser instrument unit, Yigo shows a sign of keeping water bottled up in its minerals as a result of this research. These findings corroborated what scientists have predicted about Jezero. Volcanic rocks on the crater floor may have mixed with water over time. That's all for today. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss any amazing video from us.